Alright everyone, without any further delay, we're going to get started. Today we're going to be highlighting the new FCU1315, so we'll help explain what that product is, what its focus is, and how we can present that to the market. I am Aaron Keck, the application engineer for fuels products at Schroeder Industries, and also is helping through the presentation, we have our group product manager, Rob Sabo. Moving forward, to give you an idea of what we're going to be covering today, talking about the FCU1315 is initially identifying why or is fuel a cleanliness problem, where the problem lies today. For decades we haven't had issues, so why is this a topic now? Moving on to why monitor fuel cleanliness, why is it important today with some of the new technology we have in the market and some of the changes in fuels and engines alike, and what the FCU1315 really is as a product. So we can list some features, benefits, how it's different than, say, your TMU that you're used to, and what's included as part of that product. And to help you lay out the FCU1315, where can we use the FCU1315? Who we're targeting? Beyond that, how can I justify the purpose of the FCU1315? And to finish it up, we'll express how you can get your hands on one of our FCU1315s. So to begin, is fuel cleanliness a problem? More times than not, we'll often hear from our customers that I don't have fuel problems, even though the symptoms are as glaring as the coal black smoke pouring out of the exhaust system. So we have to frame this question a little differently. Is fuel cleanliness a problem? So starting with, are you having problems with high pressure common rail repairs on your new Tier 4 equipment? So pump failures, have you had injector failures, injectors being blown, sluggish performance, the equipment's just not operating with the same power it used to when I purchased it? The next question would be shortened engine filter life. Are the fuel filters clogging prematurely? Are you having issues with not meeting recommended service intervals? Beyond that, what seems unrelated is after-treatment system failures or shortened life. Are they dealing with the cost of after-treatment system services? Are those after-treatment filters, the diesel particulate filters, not meeting their recommended service intervals? And sometimes in states where emissions are strict, they're not able to meet emission standards. Sometimes we may even see water in fuel tanks. Is that becoming an increasing problem for the end user? That can lead to both free and emulsified water and eventually leading to microbial and bacterial growth. Are they having problems with that microbe or bacteria clogging up their filter, limiting their dispensing flow? Those are the questions that we have to ask, and many times you'll often get responses from those questions. So all of these eventually lead to higher operating costs and expenses. So what they're really feeling is high maintenance costs, these issues with unexpected downtime, really looking at, say, contract schedule delays, so it can affect how they are operating their business, looking at reliability from an OEM and an end user standpoint, and just the increased fuel costs really having a huge impact. So ultimately, these questions are driving towards their problems so we can help improve the customer satisfaction. So why monitor fuel cleanliness? My fuel looks clean. The sample, I don't see a thing in it. It's crystal clear. Where's my problem? Well, what we need to realize is that fuel and the contamination within fuel is not easily seen. So as you can see on the chart here, the visibility limits of the human eye are down to about 40 micron. What we're talking about, the contamination that's harmful to high-pressure common rail systems, is measured at 4, 6, and 14 micron. So that green box you see on the screen, well below the limit of what the human eye can see. So how does this affect the fuel injection systems? Well, a group of fuel injection OEMs came together and wrote a common position statement. They basically stated that it is from the point of the end user dispensing fuel into their equipment that the quality of the fuel is their responsibility, the end user's responsibility. Now, this is a big shift because the end user now has to understand, well, how clean does my fuel have to be? The questions start passing around as to how do I meet those standards? Well, first we need to define the standards. Based upon the list that you'll see on the slide in front of you, some of the major injection system OEMs and engine OEMs, as well as an industry organization known as the Worldwide Fuel Charter, we see one trend. Really meeting ISO 4406 particulate code of 181613, as well as a water content below 200 parts per million. So That's going to be our target recommendation based upon a number of industry resources, all stating the same, if not a very similar story as to what we need to meet. Well, that's only part of the story. We talk about fuel cleanliness, where we need to be. On the left-hand side of that screen, you can see an ISO code of about 22-2018. That's not uncommon, if not on the clean side of what bulk fuel delivery cleanliness codes are. So we look at where we need the bulk fuel to be. So we talked about that worldwide fuel charter recommendation. That's really the target we're aiming for, all of which remaining below 200 parts per million water content. But then we look at dispensing. We need to meet 15-13-10 into the vehicle, and ultimately 12-9-6 or better for most Tier 4 high-pressure common rail injection systems. Extremely clean ISO codes, well below where we're at 22-21-18 with delivered bulk fuel. This steps into what the FCU1315 really is and how we can identify those ISO codes. The FCU1315 is really a portable, durable, contamination sensing piece of equipment. Now it's providing real-time results as opposed to, say, bottle sampling. So we're getting real-time results of both particle counts and water content and percent saturation. This unit is specifically designed for use with diesel fuels, as opposed to a lot of the particle counters currently out there on the market, which are just really to be used with mineral oils. So some of the features that you may be familiar with if you've used the TMU product from the Filter Systems group, the FCU1315 again features that durable pelican case, really nice for the field applications, very durable, rugged, service tool-like product. The pump with integral temperature limit switch is what allows it to be more so compatible with your restrictive, flammable, lower flash point fluids. So what we're dealing with is the ASTM D975 diesel fuel as we know it, or the European standard, the EN590. So this unit is not only compatible with that diesel fuel, but it still remains compatible with the same mineral oils you're familiar with on the TMU. The output that we're going to be most interested in for fuels applications is going to be the ISO 4406-1999. However, the other output standards are still as part of the features of this unit, much like the TMU. The integral water sensor gives you a percent saturation reading, so it really gives you a good indication of whether or not you have free water, and if you fall below that free water limit in your bulk stored fuel. And the more important feature is going to be the USB data retrieval port. So this really makes it end user friendly product for pulling those results, storing them, and reporting. So how is it different than my TMU? Well, the FCU1315 visually on the faceplate is going to have two key differences. The first one on the number 1 label there on the right-hand side is the FCU1315. You'll see that yellow connection. That's going to be used for grounding, for spark arrestion, so that way we don't have to deal with the concerns of sparks with some of those electrostatic discharge concerns. 2, some labeling addresses just the specifics on use with diesel fuel, so the flash point, the limits of that fluid. On the lid nameplate, we see a difference in the model code itself. So it is no longer the TMU, but now we see the FCU1315 along with a few characters tagged on the end describing some of the features that come with. The additional warning label that you find below that just defines what the permissible fluids and their flash point limits are. So it's going to be any fluids above 131 degrees Fahrenheit flash point. In the summary, this just gives you a good, quick overview of what we're looking at and the key differences, all of which I've talked about previously, but this just gives you a nice graphical interpretation of what we're talking about. One thing to note is you may be familiar with the Schroeder branding of the TMU. Since we're becoming much closer with our HYDAC family, just please be aware that the branding of the SCU1315 is going to be HYDAC branded. What we see in the kit, what we're normally used to seeing with the TMU on the left-hand side, we've got some unique additions to that kit as part of the FCU1315 changes. So to nail down some of the key changes, most of which remains the same, I wanted to highlight 4 key changes. So number 3 on that diagram is the suction hose adapter. That allows you to adapt that clear suction hose towards the inlet side rather than using that microbore smaller black hose that you are typically used to using in hydraulic applications. So we have that available on the suction side. We include a second suction and return hose, and we also incorporate a metallic suction pipe. So for that bottle sampling application, you're able to use a more rigid metallic pipe, leaves the hands free for a little easier usability. And point number 5 is that grounding wire for that grounding terminal connection that you saw on the faceplate. So how is this of a benefit to our distributors? Well, for one, oftentimes we hear that when we go into a customer and start discussing fuel cleanliness solutions and fuel filtration product, they don't have the issue, they can't identify the issue, they're just not interested in talking about that right now. This FCU allows us to really step in and break the ice on the fuel quality discussion. And so we really need this tool to help us identify and quantify that initial condition of the fuel before we can start to talk solutions on the backside. It also helps speed up the sales process. So for those of you who are out there in the field looking at all these fuels opportunities, the problem that we've had in the past is you have to wait days, if not weeks, for a bottle sample test result to come back, and then you have to schedule another meeting, sit down and have another meeting, hopefully in a fast amount of time with that end user or customer. This helps speed up that process because you're getting real-time results directly in front of the customer, allowing you to make those next steps in the sales conversation at the same sales call. So you can help to complement fuel filtration products. So since we're able to identify the issue immediately in front of the customer, we can start talking about fuel condition and promoting that SI fuel filtration product in the field. Some of the feedback we often get is, I like having the lab sample documentation from those bottle samples. Well, with the FCU1315, the integrated data storage, and that simple USB interface, reporting using Excel is extremely easy. You can save those samples, save that data, and create your own internal reporting process. So it can help alleviate that concern of wanting the paper documentation that they're all so comfortable with on the bottle sampling. Beyond that, they may just say, I already bottle sample, I don't want to change. Well, some of the problem with that is that bottle samples can take days, if not weeks, to get results. That can be far too late to take corrective action, especially with these critical high-pressure common rail fuel systems found on today's Tier 4 engines. And so this is really important to get the results in real time. Some may actually give you some feedback explaining that they've got consistency issues with bottle samples, but really they don't have a solution in place. They don't know of a solution that can really help them eliminate those inconsistencies. Well, the FCU, much like we can online sample with hydraulic fluids with the TMU, we can directly connect to test points in, say, a fuel system, a fuel polishing system, a fuel dispensing system with the microbore hose or that clear suction hose using the integral pump, and now we eliminate those risks of cross-contamination, environmental contamination, or poor sampling techniques in that bottle sampling world. So this really allows us to get consistent, accurate results for fuels. So where can we use this FCU1315? I would say the options are limitless, but to point you in the right direction as far as some of the key leading markets and applications, really mining, the fuel refinery level, just to really look at the very beginning of the fuel process, shipping ports, marine applications, engine power, mobile machinery, so the fuel tanks on that mobile machinery as well as the fuel being dispensed. Now, one kind of unique application we're seeing is petroleum equipment service contractors. So those folks responsible for servicing and taking care of your petroleum distributing areas. So your convenience stores, your retail petroleum sales. We also see fleet or plant maintenance, those who are responsible for their own fuels, as well as operations. So folks who are trying to take back into their own hands the control of their fuel quality. In using the FCU1315, we can start looking at how we can apply products, other fuels products, through the whole process. And so in each step, whether it's through delivery filtration, we can qualify the fuel being delivered into our bulk tanks. We can qualify the fuel being dispensed from those storage tanks into our equipment. And so we can really monitor from beginning to end how clean our fuel is to put in place corrective actions if we do have an issue. So one example of where we've got some customers using particle counting technology in use with fuel services is a local fuel system service provider. They were working on a contract with a regional hospital, and of which on the screen there are 2 stationary generators, of which each are in those green enclosures. So those units, they bid the fuel tank cleaning process for this customer, and they had a number of fuel tanks to keep cleaned. Now, the problem that they had was that the sales process was delayed because initially they had to go on site and take samples to qualify the fuel cleanliness from the get-go. Then they knew what service they would have to offer. So it caused for a delay in that process. Weeks later, they would go back in, promote their solution, and then beyond that, it would limit how much they were able to control the quality of the fuel during their service. So they would come back in after they've won the bid, they would filter the fuel through their fuel polishing system, but they couldn't physically real-time quantify how clean that fuel was and the condition of the tank. So what they would do is they would look visually, as many of us typically do in this application, visually check it, place a bottle sample, collect a bottle sample, ship it, and wait for the results. Days, if not weeks later, they may receive results that do not pass the customer's requirements. Well, unfortunately, that means this end user has to go back in at no additional revenue to them, actually at a cost, to make sure that this tank is cleaned to meet their spec. So bottle sampling really delayed the progress and potentially allowed them to have to rework some of their projects. And ultimately, they were just unable to monitor the tank cleaning progress in real time. So what we were able to do was put in place a portable fuel contamination sensor. What that allows them to do is initially show the fuel condition of the fuel tanks that they're quoting at the time they're on the site, so they can really start the sales conversation from the point at which they really make initial contact. Now next, directly cleaning to their tank cleaning system, when they directly connect, they're able to monitor the fuel condition live and in real time. So now they know how clean that tank is. So if they target 1 or 2 ISO codes below what that customer's requirement is, they know for certain that when they leave that tank will test as clean. Now, it eliminates those return service calls, really making sure that the customer provides quality service without additional cost or time from them. And again, live monitoring of filtration performance was an added bonus for them because they can see how their filters are performing in their fuel polishing system. And it's also really brought them to ask questions about their current fuel filtration quality and looking at using our solution in place of what they're currently using. So, just one example of who and where we can use the FCU1315. So, we talked about tank cleaning contractors in that example. We can target fleet service and maintenance managers, operations managers, those folks responsible for the cleanliness of their fuel tank who are going to be interested in being able to measure this in real time. At the OEM level, we can talk to quality or reliability engineers, the individuals focused on making sure that roll-off cleanliness and in-plant cleanliness of their fuel on, say, diesel-powered mobile equipment really meets their internal quality requirements. We can look at petroleum distributors, making sure that as the industry shifts, that they're keeping up with providing clean fuel, that they can qualify it, and for those critical applications, they can provide a value-add service, providing clean ISO code quality fuel. Now beyond that, we can look at dealerships and rental fleet managers. Those are the folks interested in making sure that the product that they would rent or sell, that when it comes back in for a service or return from a customer, that the fuel in that tank is clean, and if it isn't, that it's not coming back on them, so they can document how clean the fuel is when it leaves, and when it comes back, protecting them and their warranty dollar amount spent. So we look at the FCU1315. We've talked about where we can use it, but I want to step into how we can really justify this unit. If you've read our recent Fluid Power Journal article, please take a look at that. It really explains this whole process a little more in depth about where the fuel and the fuel quality and the engine technology is going in the near future. But in one statement, we say that for a 4 to 6 liter diesel engine, one failure can equate to about $5,000 to just repair. So that's the cost of parts and labor. This doesn't include the cost of downtime. It doesn't include the cost of the loss of production, any penalties that that customer may see from infractions on contracts, not being able to meet their deadlines. So for larger engine platforms, we can even see this cost increase 2 or 3-fold. A simple single filtration solution can be justified in as little as 1 prevented failure. So we can incorporate the FCU1315 along with a filtration solution and easily cost justify that to an entire fleet. And that cost justification continues to grow the larger the fleet is. So how can you get your hands on the FCU1315? Right now, currently, product information is listed on our website under two locations. First, if you go to our Schroeder website, go under Products, Fuel Filtration, look under Quality Control, and you will find the new link for the Fluid Control Unit, the FCU1315. Beyond that, we've already published it in the online catalog for fuel filtration. So look under the fuel filtration catalog on the latest link on the website. You'll find the model code, the specifications, really all the nuts and bolts details that we didn't cover in today's presentation, but that will allow you to get the technical details on that product. So with that, I'd like for you to reach out to your inside sales support staff, your local sales representative, and reach out to both Rob Sabo and myself if you have technical questions about the product or would like to learn more about just fuel cleanliness in general and the way the industry is moving. With that, how clean is your fuel?
Whether it's a helpful how-to or a new product release, Schroeder Industries is your place for fluid filtration. Subscribe below.